Before you open your mouth to complain, before you scroll through the noise, before you step into the storm of another day, pause, breathe. There is a sacred shelter waiting for you, a word that does not waver, a promise that does not fade. This is more than a prayer. This is your covering, your armor, your morning resurrection. Let it find you before the world does. There are words in this world that pass through the air like smoke, light, fleeting, easily forgotten. Then there are words that hold weight, like stone in the hand, like a mother's voice calling her child home at dusk. Psalm 91 is not light. It is not fleeting. It is not meant to be whispered once and abandoned. It is a place to live. It is a spiritual home, not made of bricks or wood, but of presence, promise, and protection. When life grows loud, when the world turns cold, when your name is not called and your worth is not seen, Psalm 91 is where you return. It is not something you recite, it is something you inhabit. Because in this world of shifting sands and unstable foundations, the soul needs something it can stand on. And this scripture does not shake. It does not move when the storm comes. It stays, it waits, it welcomes. That's what a home does. He who dwells in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. To dwell is not to visit. To dwell is not to rush through in search of quick comfort. To dwell means to remain, to make residence, to take up space fully. Psalm 91 invites you to dwell, not on your pain, not on your worries, not in the opinions of people, but in the secret place of the Most High. A place that cannot be touched by public noise. A place that doesn't bend under the weight of fear. A place not built with human hands, but by divine presence. It is the shadow of the Almighty that covers you there, not darkness, but divine shelter. The kind of shadow that cools you from the heat of worry, the kind of shadow that shields you when life's arrows fly fast and wild. Because arrows do come, they always do. Disappointment comes, rejection knocks, grief visits. But Psalm 91 says, you are not alone in the path of trouble. You are hidden, you are held. Not because you're flawless, but because you've chosen to dwell. This psalm doesn't promise a life without pain. No scripture does. What it offers is divine proximity. It promises that even in the middle of danger, even when chaos surrounds you like wolves in the dark, you have a place to hide that no enemy can enter, because it's not just protection from what's outside of you, it's restoration for what's broken within. This is where healing begins. This is where your scattered pieces gather again. In the safety of the Most High, where you're not asked to pretend, not required to be perfect, only invited to rest. Surely he shall deliver you from the snare of the fowler and from the noisome pestilence. There are snares laid for your spirit, traps designed to make you question who you are. There are voices that aim to confuse your purpose, that speak death when you carry life. But Psalm 91 reminds you, there is one who delivers. Not always from the situation, but from the lie inside it. The lie that says you are weak. The lie that says you are forgotten. The lie that says your past has more power than your future. And every time you return to this psalm, you return to truth. This is a scripture that walks with you, that sits beside you when you're too tired to pray, that speaks when your voice is gone. This is not just something to read, it is something to wrap around your spirit like a blanket. When you feel unsafe, when you feel exposed, when you feel like you don't belong in this world anymore, Psalm 91 will hold you, not just as a verse, but as a refuge. And when you make the Lord your dwelling place, not just your Sunday morning visit, but your every morning home, you step into a covering that fear cannot penetrate. 1,000 may fall at your side and 10,000 at your right hand, but it will not come near you. That is not arrogance. That is not denial. That is the certainty of covenant. It is the declaration of one who has learned to trust. Not trust in circumstances, not in certainty, but trust in the shelter that never shakes. You may still cry, you may still lose, but you will not be consumed, because the home you've made is not made of what the world can touch. You are dwelling in the shadow of the Almighty, and in that place you are beyond the reach of destruction. In Psalm 91 is your spiritual home. It doesn't need walls because it has wings. It doesn't require windows because it offers vision. It doesn't close its doors to your weakness. It opens its arms wider. So dwell there, settle there. Begin your mornings not by checking your burdens, but by checking your foundation. If you dwell in fear, you will build your day on sand. But if you dwell in Psalm 91, you will build on the rock that does not move. There will be days when the silence around you feels like abandonment. Days when you move through rooms full of people and still feel invisible. Nights when you lie awake, not because of the noise outside, but because of the storm within. In those moments, the mind may whisper that you are alone, that no one sees you, no one hears you, no one is coming to stand beside you in the dark. But those whispers are liars, because whether your eyes can perceive them or not, whether your heart believes it yet or not, there are angels assigned to walk with you. You are not walking this road without guidance. You are not fighting these battles without backup. You are not crying into the void. There is divine presence stationed at your side, watching, guarding, guiding, not because you earned it, but because you are loved, deeply, eternally, and fiercely loved. This truth is not just sweet sentiment. It is a covenant written into the very breath of Psalm 91. For he shall give his angels charge over you to keep you in all your ways. Those words are not myth. They are not metaphor. They are divine reality. They are your inheritance. Angels are not distant celestial beings floating somewhere beyond the stars. They are messengers, protectors, warriors appointed by God to accompany his beloved. And yes, you are among the beloved. That means even when you cannot trace God's hand, his help has already been deployed. Even when your prayers feel unanswered, your protection is already in motion. Angels walk silently, yet with purpose. They don't always announce themselves. They don't need to be seen to be effective. Their role is not to impress you, but to keep you from the traps set in darkness, to keep you from stumbling when the path is unclear, to keep you from falling when your strength fails. There have been times you thought it was coincidence that you avoided harm, times you thought your instincts saved you, but there are moments your life has been spared, your peace preserved, your path redirected, because an angel stepped in between you and the danger you never even saw coming. These heavenly beings are not passive. They are active, assigned, positioned with precision. They do not tire. They do not doubt. They do not abandon their post. And the charge they've been given is you, not a general concept of humanity. You specifically. Your name, your life, your calling. You were not sent into this world unguarded. You were sent with backup the enemy cannot overthrow, with covering that darkness cannot penetrate. And sometimes the presence of angels is most profound when you feel most forsaken, because it is often in our loneliest hours that the most sacred work is taking place in the unseen. While you cry, they stand. While you wait, they war. While you fall, they lift. When you think you've reached the end, they whisper to your soul, keep walking. Their purpose is not to shield you from every wound, but to ensure no wound defines you. Their purpose is not to make life painless, but to keep you intact through the pain. Angels walk with you not to stop the valley, but to walk you through it. Not to erase the fire, but to make sure it does not consume you. Not to silence the storm, but to steady your soul in the midst of it. And you must remember, the presence of angels does not always feel like deliverance in the way you imagined. Sometimes it feels like unexpected peace when chaos is all around you. Sometimes it feels like the strength to get up when your heart says stay down. Sometimes it's the closed door that hurt you but saved you. Sometimes it's the delay you resented that protected your destiny. Angels are not only with you, they go before you. They clear paths you haven't walked yet. They fight battles you don't even know you're about to face. They soften hearts, reroute plans, intercept harm, and make a way where you see no way. That's why you keep going even when it doesn't make sense. That's why you survive what should have shattered you. That's why the heaviness breaks suddenly for no earthly reason, because something heavenly shifted. So when your heart begins to question, when fear starts creeping in like a fog, speak truth back into your soul. You are not alone. You have never been alone. Even in the silence, even in the sorrow, even in the seasons where you felt forgotten, you have been accompanied, covered, and carried by messengers who do not sleep, by warriors who do not waver. We are taught from a young age to hold on tightly to our pride, to our plans, to our control, to our expectations of how life should unfold. The world praises the strong grip, the stubborn mind, the closed fist. It tells us that to survive, we must never yield. But strength without surrender is not strength at all. It is strain. It is exhaustion wearing a brave face. There is a power more profound than resistance. There is a safety not found in control, but in release. And that is the mystery we so often overlook. There is safety in surrender, and trust is your strongest shield. To surrender is not to give up. It is to give over. It is not weakness, but wisdom. It is saying, I may not understand this season, but I trust the one who does. You were not designed to carry the weight of every worry, to answer every question, to fight every battle with your own hands. Some things are too heavy for human hearts. Some mountains are not meant to be moved by might, but by faith. The strongest souls are not the ones who wrestle forever. They are the ones who know when to let go. Trust is not passive. It is active courage. It is the decision to believe even in the absence of clarity. It is standing in the storm and declaring, this wind may whip against me, but I will not be moved. Because you are not standing on circumstance, you are standing on promise. And that promise says you are never forsaken. You are never alone. You are never forgotten in the shuffle of the universe. You are held. You are guided. You are covered. There is safety in surrender because when you trust, you shift your focus. You stop staring at the size of the mountain and you start remembering the size of your source. You stop obsessing over the unknowns and start anchoring yourself in what is eternal. The path may still be winding, the night may still be dark, but surrender allows you to walk forward without panic, without fear, because you are no longer depending on your own strength to get you through. You are leaning on something deeper, something higher, something sacred. Trust is not the absence of fear. It is the decision to move forward despite it. It is knowing that even when you can't trace the path, you can trust the purpose. Even when you don't see the ending, you are held by the one who wrote the beginning. Surrender does not mean you won't feel uncertainty. It means uncertainty won't control you. Because when your trust is rooted in the divine, your peace no longer depends on what's happening around you. Your calm comes from within, from a place untouchable by circumstance. There is a kind of peace that only arrives when you stop wrestling with the outcome, when you release your white-knuckled grip on the need to control everything, when you breathe and say, let it be what it's meant to be. That peace is not born of ignorance, but of intimacy, an intimacy with the truth that you are watched over, guided, and loved far beyond your own understanding. Surrender clears the space where fear once lived. It unclenches your jaw, relaxes your shoulders, opens your palms. It does not shrink you, it frees you. When you surrender, you stop surviving and start living. You stop bracing and start trusting. And in that sacred space where your trust meets divine timing, miracles begin to move. Not always loudly, not always quickly, but surely. The shield of trust is not made of steel. It is not something you hold. It is something that holds you. It surrounds your heart, guards your thoughts, and quiets the lies that tell you you must always have the answer. With trust as your shield, you can walk into uncertainty and not be consumed. You can face delay and not fall into despair. You can let go of what's behind you and not lose your identity, because your identity is no longer tied to the things you cannot control. This world will ask for your attention, your energy, your labor, and your loyalty, but it will not give you safety. That must come from within, and within you there is a place called surrender. In that place you do not have to pretend, you do not have to strive, you only have to trust. And when you do, the very act of letting go becomes the bridge to everything your soul has been aching for: rest, clarity, purpose, peace. So stop gripping what is trying to leave. Stop fighting battles that are not yours to fight. Stop carrying burdens that were never yours to bear. Trust is not your last resort. It is your most powerful weapon. Surrender is not where you end. It is where you begin. Fear is persistent. It knows your address. It knows your name. It arrives without invitation and whispers doubt in the quietest moments. It doesn't need a storm to show up. It walks in on ordinary days, casting shadows on your thoughts, making you question your strength, your path, your worth. Fear will knock at your door dressed as logic, dressed as caution, dressed as protection. But just because it knocks doesn't mean it gets to stay. Fear is a visitor, not a resident, and it only takes up space in the heart that has not been fully furnished by faith. Because where faith has settled deeply and completely, fear cannot take root. It can knock, it can rattle the doorknob, it can try to slide through the cracks. But faith, once it takes up residence, stands guard at every entry point. Faith is not denial. It doesn't pretend the mountain isn't high or the valley isn't deep. Faith sees the storm coming and still chooses to build anyway. Faith feels the tremble in the knees and still decides to take the step forward. It acknowledges fear, but it does not obey it. It speaks louder than the lies fear tries to scream. Because faith doesn't need a full picture to move, it only needs a promise. Fear says, "What if?" Faith says, even if it's hard, even if the way's unclear, even if the outcome doesn't look like what I hoped, still I will trust. Still I will move. Still I will breathe through the tremble and lift my head, because I know who walks with me. That's the difference between those who survive and those who thrive. Not that they are fearless, but that they have chosen to make faith their foundation. Faith is not loud. It doesn't need to be. It doesn't shout over your panic. It sits inside your chest like an anchor, holding you steady when everything else wants to sweep you away. It says, you are not your fear. You are not your past. You are not the voice of doubt whispering worst-case scenarios in your ear. You are the one who was chosen to stand, chosen to rise, chosen to walk forward when others stop. The house where faith dwells is not free from storms, but it stands, even while the winds howl. It creaks, it groans, but it does not fall, because it is built on something deeper than emotion. Faith does not rely on how you feel. It relies on what you know to be true. You may feel afraid, but you know you're not alone. You may feel uncertain, but you know you're held. You may feel weak, but you know grace will meet you in that weakness. Fear thrives on instability, on confusion, on isolation. But faith brings clarity. Faith creates connection to the divine, to your inner strength, to the vision of who you're becoming. Fear wants to paralyze. Faith pushes you into motion, not reckless motion, but rooted steps forward. one foot in front of the other, even if your voice shakes and your eyes fill with tears. There's something sacred about choosing trust when everything around you says panic. There's something powerful about standing still when fear tells you to run. That kind of stillness is not passive, it's prophetic. It's a declaration that you know the truth of who you are, and no temporary feeling will convince you otherwise. So when fear knocks, let it knock. You don't have to open the door. You don't have to entertain it. You don't have to make a bed for it or feed it with your focus. Just acknowledge its presence and then remember who lives here now. Faith. Bold, unshaken, tender faith. The kind that chooses to believe not because everything makes sense, but because your soul remembers it was born for more than survival. Faith doesn't need everything to be perfect to move forward. It just needs you to say yes. Yes to trying again. Yes to believing what you cannot see. Yes to releasing the grip of fear so something greater can hold you. And when you say yes to faith, fear begins to lose its footing. Because no matter how loud fear becomes, it cannot stay where faith has made itself at home. Fear may knock, but it cannot live here. Not when you've chosen to believe, to rise, to hope, to keep walking through the dark with your eyes fixed on the light that never fails. There is a kind of protection this world cannot see, yet it surrounds those who walk in their purpose like a shield made of light. It does not make you untouchable by pain, but it makes you unreachable by destruction. This is not luck. It is not coincidence. It is divine immunity, a covering that flows from alignment, a sacred defense that activates when your feet move in rhythm with your calling. Purpose is not just a destination. It is a posture, a way of being, a truth you embody. And when your life begins to echo the reason you were created, heaven responds. Doors open that no man can close. Paths clear where there was once only resistance. Attacks may come, but they lose their power. Weapons may form, but they will not prosper. Not because of your strength, but because of the alignment of your soul. There are people walking through storms that should have drowned them, yet they are dry. There are souls who have faced loss after loss and still rise with grace in their steps and fire in their voice. Why? Because purpose has marked them. Because they are not wandering aimlessly, they are walking with intention, and intention attracts protection. Living aligned with purpose doesn't mean you'll never cry, but it means your tears will never be wasted. It doesn't mean you won't face rejection, but it means that rejection will redirect you into the exact place you're meant to be. Purpose does not prevent the struggle. It transforms it. It sanctifies it. It draws meaning from every mess and turns your wounds into weapons of wisdom. You cannot be easily broken when you are rooted in why you were born, because when you know your why, you stop running from the how. You stop fearing the when. You stop doubting the who. You begin to walk with the quiet confidence that even if the path is rocky, your steps are ordered. That even if the night is long, morning is guaranteed. That even if the fire burns, it will not consume you. Divine immunity is not a free pass to skip hardship. It is a covenant that hardship will not destroy your destiny. It is assurance that every delay is divine, that every detour is designed, that every setback carries a sacred lesson. And when your heart aligns with that truth, you no longer live in fear, you rise above it. You stop needing the world's applause because heaven's approval sustains you. You stop seeking validation in empty places because purpose affirms you. You stop compromising your values because you understand that your calling is not negotiable. You carry yourself with the dignity of someone chosen, someone appointed, someone set apart. And that is what the enemy fears most. Not your status, not your possessions, but your clarity. Because once you become clear about who you are and why you're here, you become untouchable in the ways that matter most. You become a force. You become the answer to someone's prayer. You become the breakthrough someone has been waiting to witness. So protect your purpose. Guard it with everything you have, because when you are aligned with it, there is a shield around you that no darkness can pierce. There is a light within you that no lie can dim. There is a presence before you, behind you, beside you, that speaks on your behalf even when you are silent. You don't need to force what is already yours by design. You don't need to chase what's attracted by truth. You don't need to beg for doors that open with your obedience. When you live aligned with your calling, covered in conviction, committed to truth, you walk not only with courage, but with a quiet kind of immunity this world can't comprehend. Not because you are perfect, but because you are aligned, and alignment always activates the covering. The way you begin your day is not just a routine, it is a declaration. It is the moment you choose who walks with you, who guides your thoughts, who covers your steps. Before the world rushes in with its noise, its deadlines, its demands, there is a sacred space in the early morning hours. A space where you set the tone, claim the atmosphere, and anoint your path with intention. That is the time to align yourself with something greater than the day ahead, to summon protection, embrace peace, and walk in divine power. Before your feet even touch the floor, your spirit must rise. Rise in remembrance of who you are. Rise in authority over what tries to bring you low. Rise in surrender, not as a form of weakness, but as a sign of strength, because only the strong know the power of bowing before the day begins. When you start your morning rooted in the divine, you don't just go through the motions, you go forward with mission. You don't merely react, you respond with revelation. Protection is not passive. It is active spiritual armor placed on with intention. You cover your mind with truth so that lies do not find a place to linger. You wrap your heart in gratitude so that bitterness cannot settle.